There is a moment, and I think most of you have lived it, where you walked into a room, looked at someone, and something inside you said, "Be careful." You didn't know why. Nobody told you anything. The person may have been smiling, dressed nicely, saying all the right words, and yet something deep inside your chest, something older than your education, older than your experience, older than anything you could put a name to, whispered a warning. And what did most of us do with that whisper? We ignored it. We told ourselves we were being unfair. We told ourselves we were judging too quickly. We smiled back, extended our hand, and opened our hearts, only to find out, months or sometimes years later, that the warning was right, that the feeling knew something our thinking mind refused to accept. I want to talk to you today about that feeling, because it is not a glitch, it is not paranoia, it is not old age making you suspicious. That feeling is one of the most sophisticated instruments ever created, and it lives inside you right now, has always lived inside you, and it is waiting, patiently, for you to finally start listening to it. My name is not important right now. What is important is what I am about to share with you, because I believe with everything I have that this knowledge could protect you, could heal some old wounds, and could change every relationship you walk into from this day forward. I have spent a lifetime, many decades, studying the human mind, not the brain, but the mind, not the hardware, but the invisible software running underneath all of us. And what I found, over and over and over again, is this simple truth: people tell you exactly who they are. Every single day, they tell you with their eyes, with the way they hold their body, with the words they choose and the words they carefully avoid. They tell you with their silences. They tell you with what makes them laugh and what makes them go very, very quiet. The tragedy is that most of us were never taught how to listen. We were taught reading and writing and mathematics. Some of us were taught scripture and history and how to balance a checkbook. But almost none of us were ever sat down and taught how to truly see another human being, how to look past the mask, how to understand what a person actually means when they say something kind, but their eyes say something different. That gap, that missing education, has cost many of us deeply. I want you to think back for a moment. Think about someone who hurt you, not an enemy, not a stranger, but someone close, a friend, a family member, a partner, a business associate, someone who smiled and said they loved you or respected you or had your best interests at heart. I want to ask you something honest, and I want you to be honest with yourself in return. Were there signs? I don't ask this to make you feel foolish. I ask it because in almost every situation I have ever encountered, and I have encountered thousands, the signs were there, early, sometimes very early. A small lie that got excused, a moment of coldness that got explained away, a look in their eyes that didn't match the warmth in their voice, a story that didn't quite add up but that you decided not to question because questioning felt rude, or difficult or ungrateful. We are taught to give people the benefit of the doubt, and that is a beautiful instinct. It comes from a generous heart, but generosity without wisdom is not virtue, it is vulnerability, and at our age, at this stage of life, we have earned the right to be both generous and wise, both warm and watchful. Here is something I discovered early in my work with people, and it surprised me at first, though it no longer does. Every human being is walking around wearing what I came to call a mask, not literally, but in a very real psychological sense. We all present a version of ourselves to the world, a polished, managed, carefully constructed version. We show people our confidence when inside we are afraid. We show people our happiness when inside we are lonely. We show people our calm when inside a storm is raging. This is not dishonesty necessarily. This is being human. We all do it in small ways every day. But some people, and this is where it becomes critical, some people have built their mask so thick, so practiced, so convincing, that they have almost forgotten they are wearing it themselves. And those people are dangerous, not always consciously, not always with evil intent, but dangerous nonetheless, to your peace, to your finances, to your emotional health, to the quiet and the rest you deserve at this time in your life. And the only protection, the only real protection, is learning to see what is underneath the mask before that person gets close enough to harm you. Now I want to be absolutely clear about something, because it matters deeply to me. This is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. This is not about walking through life with cold eyes and a closed heart. The goal is not to become hardened. The goal, my deepest hope for you today, is the opposite. It is to give you enough security, enough inner clarity, enough real confidence in your own perception, that you can actually open more freely, that you can love more wisely, that you can trust with real discernment rather than blind hope. Because when you know how to read people, you stop wasting your precious love on those who cannot receive it rightly, and you become free, truly free, to pour that love into the people and the places and the purposes that actually deserve it. That is what today is about. So let me start at the very beginning with the most fundamental thing I know about human beings, the thing that unlocks everything else, the single key that once you hold it, you will never be able to unsee. And it starts with understanding something most people spend their entire lives never noticing about themselves or anyone around them. Something happening right now, in this very room, between every one of us, invisibly, constantly, powerfully, and with absolute honesty, and that thing is called the body. Not the body as a machine, not the body as something your doctor examines and measures and writes numbers about on a clipboard. I mean the body as a messenger. The body is the one part of a human being that almost never lies. Think about that for a moment. Your mouth can lie. Your words can be rehearsed, polished, carefully chosen. You can practice a story in the mirror until it sounds completely believable. Most of us have done this at some point in our lives, not always with bad intentions, but we have done it. We have shaped our words before speaking them. But your body is always speaking the truth. It does it quietly. It does it in small ways. But it does it constantly, without stopping, without editing, without running anything past the part of your brain that manages your reputation. The body just speaks. And once you learn its language, once you truly begin to understand what it is saying, you will realize that every person you have ever met has been giving you a complete and honest report of who they really are, the whole time. You just didn't know how to read it. Let me give you something simple, something you can use today. Watch a person's feet. I know that sounds unusual, maybe even a little funny, but stay with me because this is real. When we are uncomfortable, when we want to leave a situation, when something is being said that makes us feel trapped or dishonest or anxious, our feet will often turn away, toward the door, away from the person we're speaking to. The upper body might stay perfectly still. The face might stay perfectly calm. The voice might stay perfectly warm. But the feet are already trying to leave. We control our faces. We have been practicing our faces our whole lives. But very few people have ever been coached on what to do with their feet. So the feet tell the truth. This is just one small example. But I want you to feel the power of what I am pointing to here, because it goes so much deeper than feet and faces. Every single one of us carries two conversations at the same time. There is the conversation happening out loud, the words, the story, the explanation, the compliment, the promise. And then there is the conversation happening underneath, in the tension of the shoulders, in the direction of the eyes, in the speed of the breathing, in whether someone leans toward you or whether, very subtly, very carefully, they are always keeping just a little bit of distance between you and them. Both conversations are real, but only one of them has been rehearsed. And here is the thing about getting older, about being at this particular stage of life, that I genuinely believe is a gift, even though the world rarely frames it that way. You have decades of experience reading situations, decades of watching people, decades of learning, sometimes painfully, what certain behaviors lead to. That is not something to dismiss. That is not something to be embarrassed about. That accumulated wisdom sitting inside you right now is extraordinary. The problem is that many of us were taught to distrust it. We were told we were being too sensitive. We were told we were overthinking. We were told, especially those of us who grew up in certain homes or certain cultures, that it was not polite to question, not polite to probe, not polite to trust our instincts over someone else's words. And so we learned to silence that inner voice. We learned to override it. We learned to smile and extend the hand even when something deep inside us said, "Wait, I want to give you permission today to stop doing that." Not permission to be rude, not permission to be cold or accusatory or suspicious of every kind gesture, but permission, real solid, earned permission, to take your own perception seriously, to treat what you feel in the presence of another person as information, valuable information, information worth paying attention to. There is a woman I once knew. I will not use her real name. I never do, but she came to me after a very painful experience. She had trusted someone completely, given them access to her life, her finances, her confidence, and it had ended badly, very badly. When we sat together and talked through the beginning of that relationship, she said something I have never forgotten. She said, "I knew, from the very first month, something felt wrong. But he was so charming, and everyone else seemed to love him, and I thought, who am I to say something is wrong when nobody else sees it? Who am I to say?" How many of us have said those exact words to ourselves? How many times have we talked ourselves out of our own truth because we were afraid of being wrong, or being judged, or being alone? She was not wrong. She had seen it clearly. The signal was there, firing correctly, working exactly as it was designed to work. But she had been taught, as so many of us were taught, that her own inner knowing was less trustworthy than the social consensus around her. That is what I want to begin to dismantle today. Because the truth is, the people around you can be fooled. The crowd can be charmed. groups of people can all collectively miss what one quiet, attentive, experienced person sees clearly in a single moment, and that person can be you. That person, with the right understanding, with the right tools, with just a little more confidence in what your body already knows and your instincts already feel. That person absolutely can be you. Now I want to go a little deeper, because understanding body language and reading social signals, as valuable as those things are, they are only the surface layer of what we are really talking about today. Underneath all of that, underneath the feet and the eyes and the posture and the pauses, there is something even more powerful at work. Something that shapes every single behavior a person shows you. Something that runs like a river beneath everything they do and say and choose and avoid. And that something is what I spent the greater part of my life trying to understand and explain. It is the hidden pattern inside every person, the invisible blueprint, the deep structure of who someone truly is, not who they say they are, not who they present themselves to be, but who they actually are at the core. And once you understand that this pattern exists, once you understand that every human being is operating from one, the question becomes not just how do I read this moment, but how do I read this person, this whole person, not just in this moment, but at their root. And that is where it gets truly powerful, because when you understand a person's pattern, their deep, invisible blueprint, you stop being surprised by them. You stop waking up one morning and thinking, how did I not see this coming? You stop giving third and fourth and fifth chances to someone who was showing you exactly who they were from the very beginning. You start to see people the way God sees them, clearly, fully, with love, yes, always with love, but also with open eyes. I want to say something here that I mean with my whole heart. God gave you your instincts. He did not give them to you as decoration. He did not place that quiet inner alarm inside you so that you could spend your life apologizing for it, or explaining it away, or silencing it to make other people comfortable. He put it there to protect you. Think about the oldest, deepest wisdom traditions in the world. Think about what the book of Proverbs says, that wisdom calls out in the streets, that understanding raises her voice, that she stands at the crossroads and speaks. Wisdom is not hiding. Wisdom is not silent. Wisdom is shouting at us every single day, through every signal our body sends, through every instinct that fires, through every quiet morning moment when something we cannot quite name tells us, pay attention. The question is whether we are willing to listen. And at this stage of your life, I want to tell you something directly, something I wish someone had told me far earlier. You do not have time to keep ignoring wisdom. I don't say that to frighten you. I say it because I respect you too much to be soft when the truth needs to be firm. We are not 25 years old. We are not in the early chapters of our story where every mistake is a lesson with decades of recovery ahead of it. We are in a chapter where our choices matter deeply, where our energy is precious, where the people we allow into our inner circle have real, significant power over the quality and peace of our remaining years. That is not a small thing. That is everything. I have watched people in their later years make the most painful mistakes of their lives. Not from stupidity, never from stupidity, but from loneliness, from a hunger for connection so deep and so long unmet that they were willing to override every warning signal just to feel seen, just to feel wanted, just to feel like someone in this wide, fast, noisy world was choosing them. I understand that hunger. I have felt it myself, but I want you to hear me when I say this. The wrong person in your life at this stage is not just emotionally painful. It can be devastating. It can take your savings. It can take your health. It can take your peace. It can take the quiet evenings and the gentle mornings and the simple dignity that you have worked your entire life to earn. And you deserve better than that. You deserve so much better than that. So what do we do with this? How do we protect ourselves without closing our hearts? How do we stay warm and open and loving while also being clear-eyed and careful and wise? That is exactly what this journey is about. And I want you to understand something deeply before we go any further. Learning to read people is not about becoming cynical. The most cynical people I have ever encountered were actually the most easily manipulated, because cynicism is just disappointment wearing armor. It looks strong, but it is brittle. It pushes everyone away equally, the dangerous and the good alike, and it leaves a person just as isolated and just as vulnerable as blind trust does, only colder. What we are building here is something entirely different. We are building discernment. Real, grounded, spiritually rooted discernment. The kind that looks at a person with warmth and genuine interest and complete openness, and at the same time, quietly, underneath, is reading every signal, weighing every word, noticing every small inconsistency, and trusting what it finds. That kind of discernment is a gift, and like every real gift, it can be developed, it can be grown, it can be strengthened through understanding and practice until it becomes so natural, so second nature, that you begin to use it without even thinking. The way a farmer reads the sky before a storm, The way a mother reads her child's face before a single word is spoken. The way something ancient and knowing inside you has always been trying to speak to you. If only you would stop long enough to hear it. And I know why it is hard to stop. I know because I have sat with people, real people, hurting people, people just like you, who told me that the hardest thing was not the betrayal itself. The hardest thing was what the betrayal left behind. The residue, the fog, that terrible, quiet question that follows you into the morning and sits with you at the kitchen table before anyone else is awake. Can I trust myself anymore? If I missed it then, if I was that wrong about that person, how do I know I am not wrong again right now? How do I know my judgment is reliable? How do I know the next person who smiles at me and says kind things is not just another mask over another emptiness? That question, that particular wound, I want to speak to it directly, because I believe it is sitting in this room right now. I believe some of you have been carrying it for years, quietly, privately, without telling anyone how deep it actually goes. And I want to say something to you that I need you to really hear. Being deceived did not make you foolish. It made you human. The most loving people get hurt the most. That is not a coincidence. That is not a flaw. People with open hearts, people with genuine warmth, people who extend trust because they themselves are trustworthy. Those are the people that manipulative and broken individuals seek out. You were not targeted because you were weak. You were targeted because you were good. Please hear that. You were targeted because you were good. But here is where I need to be honest with you, even if it is a little uncomfortable, because I care about you too much to just make you feel better without also making you stronger. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, we stay in situations that are hurting us not because we cannot see the warning signs, but because we are afraid of what leaving them means. We are afraid of the silence that follows. We are afraid of the empty chair. We are afraid of telling people they were right. We are afraid that if we let go of that person, that situation, that hope, we will be left with something we have been quietly running from for a very long time, ourselves. And underneath that, underneath all of it, there is often something that needs to be said out loud, something tender and sacred and sometimes very painful. There are things we have not forgiven, not just in other people, in ourselves, old decisions, old moments when we chose wrong, old doors we should not have opened and old doors we should not have closed, things we did in fear, things we did in anger, things we did in loneliness when we were not thinking clearly and the night felt very long and the right path felt very far away. Those things, if we have never truly laid them down, become the lens through which we see everything. Every new relationship, every new opportunity, every new person who stands in front of us asking to be trusted. We are not seeing them clearly. We are seeing them through the weight of everything we have never released. And that is why this conversation is not just about reading other people. It is about coming back to yourself. It is about forgiving yourself for the times you missed the signs, for the times you stayed too long, for the times you gave too much to someone who gave back too little, for the times you silenced your own voice to keep the peace in a room that was never truly peaceful. God already has. Let that land for a moment. He has already forgiven every single one of those moments. He does not hold them over you. He does not bring them up when you come to Him in the quiet hours. He does not make you earn your way back to being trustworthy in His eyes. He never stopped trusting you. He never stopped seeing your worth. The question is whether you will extend to yourself the same grace He has already extended to you. Because until you do, until you genuinely, deeply on your knees if you have to, release what you have been holding against yourself, you will keep attracting the same tests. Different faces, different names, different circumstances, but the same lesson arriving again and again, knocking at the same door, asking the same question. Are you ready yet? Are you ready to see clearly? Are you ready to trust your own heart again? Not blindly, not recklessly, but wisely, gently, with God walking right beside you every step, because He is there. He has always been there. Even in the moments that felt most abandoned, most confusing, most dark, He was present, working, weaving, turning even the painful chapters into something that would eventually, if you let it, make you stronger, wiser, more whole than you have ever been. And that is exactly where we are right now. You and I, in this moment together. This is not the end of your story, not even close. I have known people who found their greatest clarity at 60, their deepest joy at 62, their most meaningful relationships, their most purposeful days, their most honest and beautiful version of themselves, not in their youth, but right here, in this exact season of life that the world sometimes tries to convince you is a closing chapter. It is not a closing chapter. It is the chapter where everything finally makes sense. All those years of experience, all those hard lessons, all those mornings you got up when you did not feel like it, all those times you kept going when stopping felt easier, all those moments of pain that you survived and carried and eventually, somehow kept walking through. They were not wasted. Not one of them. They were building something inside you that is more valuable than anything you could have purchased or achieved or been handed. They were building wisdom, real wisdom, earned wisdom, the kind that lives in the bones, and now I am asking you to use it, not someday. Now I am asking you to walk out of this room, or away from wherever you are hearing these words, and make a decision, a quiet, firm, unshakable decision that from this day forward, you will take yourself seriously, that you will listen to that inner voice, that you will pay attention to what your body tells you when you meet someone new, that you will stop apologizing for your discernment and start honoring it as the sacred gift it truly is. I am asking you to forgive what needs forgiving, in others, and especially in yourself, so that you can see clearly again, so that the weight of old wounds stops distorting the view of what is right in front of you. I am asking you to trust God more than you trust your fears, because fear will always give you a reason to stay small. Fear will always find an argument for why it is safer to stay closed, stay silent, stay hidden. But God calls you forward. He always has. He is calling you forward right now, into relationships that are honest, into a life that is clear, into a version of yourself that is finally, fully, beautifully awake. You have been through enough to know what matters. You are wise enough to see what is real, and you are loved, deeply, permanently, unconditionally loved, by a God who has never once looked at you and seen anything less than someone worth fighting for. So go forward, with open eyes and an open heart, with wisdom in one hand and grace in the other. The best of you is not behind you. It is standing right in front of you, waiting.